So, what we're going to do right now, we'll take about 10 minutes, and we're going to go over the principles of reloading and remedying malfunctions in the middle of a fight. So let's start. What do I have here? An empty. Okay? So I'm engaging and I suddenly don't get a reaction from my weapon. What do I do?
Check it out.
I check. We always check. We don't go into any type of this immediate action stuff where I immediately strip a mag and reinsert. How long does it take me to check my weapon and identify what the problem is? Less than a second. How long does it take me to drop a mag and reload a new one? Longer or shorter than to check? Longer. Okay? Even if we're talking about fractions of seconds, we are in the middle of a gunfight, rounds are flying at us. Do fractions of seconds count? Yeah. It is one single fraction of a second that can make all the difference between me being alive, me being dead. We always check. We always will give up the smaller amount of time to eliminate the necessity to have to give a longer period of time to perform an action. You understand what I'm saying? If I check my weapon and my slide here is closed, okay, so I'm engaging, squeeze, I don't get anything, and I check and the slide is closed, what do I have? Jam one, failure to feed, failure to fire. What's the remedy? Is that quicker or slower than ejecting a mag and getting a new one? It's much quicker. We have to make ourselves as optimal as we can. So, I'm engaging. I don't get a reaction, I check. My weapon is empty. What do I do next? Walk me through it. Just as far as remedying the problem here, not all the other strategical and tactical stuff that we'll reinsert after. So what do I have to do now? I strip the magazine out?
Drop it. Get your extra mag out.
So from here, so this hand right away goes to a new mag? Put your hands up if yes. Put your hands up if no. Put your hands up if you didn't put your hand up for either one. Okay, I'll tell you something right now. In a combat situation, we hope that we'll make the right decision. We always hope that we'll make the right decision. We don't have guarantees because combat is uncontrolled. It's an uncontrolled environment, and we never know what can happen. So we hope to be able to make the right decision. We might make the wrong decision. No matter what happens, you have to make a goddamn decision. The one thing you cannot do is not make a decision. Because there, you guarantee yourself 100% to lose. You make a decision, maybe you have a 50-50 chance of being right or being wrong. Better than 100% of losing. Understand? Now, put your hands up if you say, strip the mag first. Okay? Put your hands up if you say, reach for the new mag. What?
Should have went last.
Okay. All right. So, I'm going to show you some more of my psychic abilities here. My mind reading skills. I can guarantee you that the majority of you in here, the majority, have, if you haven't experienced this, you will have witnessed this at some point in time in your careers dealing with firearms, where you experience or you see somebody reach for a mag as they go to drop the mag out of their weapon to eject it, and they get here, they get to here, and this mag is still not coming out. Put your hands up if you have never experienced or witnessed that. Put your hands up if you have experienced or witnessed that. 100% of you. In every single course. Why am I so psychic? Because these are things that are statistics, because in every single course that I have taught over I don't know how many years, going on at least 15 years in this business of teaching this subject matter, every single group, whether it's instructors, recruits, TAC guys, spec ops, anything in between, when I ask, well over 90%, I'm being conservative, 90% will put their hands up. That is how I know. Because myself as a shooter and somebody who's been on the line, I have observed this more than enough times as well. Now, let's forget the range and let's talk about real life combat. So the notion is that the quickest thing to do is to start to jump steps ahead. Why? Because speed. Well, if you run really, really fast, but you get nowhere, you're on a hamster wheel, what have you accomplished? Nothing. If you run really, really fast and you're almost at the finish line, but damn it, I forgot the damn key that I needed, and you got to turn around, run 100 yards back to get it, and then run another 100 yards to the finish line, what have you accomplished? You've gone backwards. We will always give up a shorter period of time to ensure we don't end up having to pay back in the middle of a gunfight a longer process and period of time. We're dealing with semi-automatic pistols, we're dealing with temperatures that occur here, we're dealing with explosions. We got plastic, we got metal. When we fire this gun, what happens to it? Heats up, right? Magazine swells. A lot of times it gets stuck in there. Maybe there's micro debris that gets stuck in there and prevents it from actually ejecting. It happens far too often. So I now go to drop this mag while my support hand, and again remember, rounds are flying at me, my support hand reaches for the new mag, and I come to here and this mag hasn't come out yet. Now this hand is waiting. What am I going to do next? Naturally, what's the remedy for that? What do you have to do? You have to now strip this magazine and reinsert here. Have we now added seconds to the task? How many rounds have come towards us in those extra seconds? You understand here? So, rule is that when I'm in from here, I don't get a reaction. I check and it's empty. This hand is passing by anyways. It takes nothing. You tell me, how long does it take for me to do this? There's no change. I will always strip it out immediately. I've guaranteed myself, even if I have given time, which I think we can all agree that it's less than a nano fraction of a second that it took me to now do this, even if I traded that in, I've guaranteed 100% that my mag well is clear. And when I produce this new magazine, it's going in the weapon and back in the fight a lot sooner. Do we agree on that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I strip, acquire my new mag. Even amongst experienced people that have the hours in, that have thousands and thousands of rounds behind a gun, I still observe a very basic problem that occurs that prevents them and prevents a lot of newer people with firearms in getting back in the fight quickly, and that is that they don't grab the mag the way that we're all taught to grab the mag. What is the correct way to grab your magazine and to produce it from the holster? Is it here? The furthest distance, the further the distance is that I have between my hand and the round of the mag, the first round here, the more chances I'm going to have of either missing or having this happen before I get it in. When we reach our mag, remember the basics. The bottom of the mag, my palm contacts it. That way, when I collapse my hand over top, tip of my finger is as high up as possible, preferably pushing against that round. This now ensures, in the dark, we can all do this. If I told you guys close your eyes and stick your index finger into your hand, you'll be able to do it, okay? Because I know how to index my finger to my hand. This ensures now that my tip of the mag is going into the weapon properly. I'm going to take some time. So, produce it properly. 1, 2, as hard as I can. What do I have to do next? I have to drop the slide, right? How do I do that? We have two options, right? We either have by racking the slide or by using the slide catch release, right? Okay, who here racks the slide? Put your hands up, don't be afraid. Don't let. All right, who here uses the slide release? Very good. That is how we do it. The slide release is designed to release the slide. Racking the slide is not designed to release the slide. Now, here, I will throw this at you again. The majority of you have either experienced this or you have seen it if you've been as business long enough. When you're on the range, you either do this or you have observed it. New mag gets inserted, individual goes to the rack, and the slide doesn't drop. And then they come back and rack again. Who here has never experienced that or seen that? Put your hand up. Who here has experienced that or seen it? Put your hand up, please. You? You put your hand up.
I can't remember.
Can't remember. Okay, that's fine. We'll take out the equation. You, yes? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7. Well, the slide catch release is an automatic action that gives us the result directly. Racking the slide is me enacting a middleman here. It's me putting effort into an action, and I hope that that action will cause a reaction of the desired end result. Pull the slide back in the hopes that the slide catch drops, but that doesn't always happen. Activating the slide release guarantees 100% of the time that I'm dropping the slide. 100% of the time. Remember the context. What are we in the middle of here? We're not on the range with the stress of the instructor blowing the whistle and yelling in our ear. We have rounds flying at us. Every microsecond counts. We always use a slide catch release. Now, what is the argument here? Why do people advocate racking the slide? The argument is this concept of gross motor skill versus fine motor skill. It's bullshit. Everything with a gun is a fine motor skill. Everything with a gun. And I will tell you right now, what is the scientific backing that I have for my arguments? Us in Israel, it's mandatory military service. 18 years old, everybody goes in. Boys and girls. Not men and women, boys and girls. 18 years old. Everybody in Special Forces gets trained on the handgun, along with all the long gun. I have 18-year-old kids, thousands of them that I have trained on the range, long guns with handguns. 18-year-old kids are smaller than any fucking Canadian or American, with smaller hands, a lot less maturity. 18 years old, we all remember how we were at 18, who have zero issues on the range or in combat with a gun with these so-called fine motor skills. Are you going to tell me that a 30, 40-year-old, large, mature North American is going to have issues? I'll put an 18-year-old up against you. No such thing as gross motor skills with a gun, number one. Number two, if you have somebody who's got an issue with performing an action with a gun, you have to either see if you're training them properly, or you got to see if they're the right fit for this line of work. You don't start to bastardize the effective way of doing things because we have to drop the bar to meet everybody else. There's far more chances of a person in the middle of a gunfight doing this and not having that slide drop than there is of a person doing this and not being able to. I can guarantee you that.
What about left-handed shooters?
Become right-handed.
Become right-handed.
Okay. So, left-handed, two options. I can either use all my fingers. I can either just come in from here and drop this way, okay, or come in over top and from here, okay, with my thumb. The most effective is just in from here. You're just coming in and you're just raking along everything from here, okay? Hey everyone, thank you again for taking time to view this this video. I hope you're enjoying it. Sorry for the break in the consistency and the continuity with the video. The video that you're watching was from a course that I taught a couple years back, and the filming behind it wasn't really a coordinated, professional effort that was put together.
it was sort of a last minute decision to get some cameras out there and try to film everything. So I got footage that's all over the place that's missing, and there's one particular point that relates to the subject matter of this particular video that I couldn't find the original footage for. So I decided to quickly throw together a little clip, reinsert it into the footage here to cover this point. This particular point is one of the most important reasons as to why it is that we perform the action the way that we do with the firearms in the context of what the subject matter is. And again, what we're talking about here is remedying or clearing malfunctions during the engagement. So first off, I need to redefine this and make sure that we have a really clear understanding contextually of what it is that we're talking about when we say during the engagement. Because the fact is that a lot of systems out there, a lot of instructors, they use the vernacular and the verbiage of, gunfighting and performing certain actions during a gunfight, but it ends at that macro level of the definition. And therefore, a lot of the actions that are being performed with these firearms or the tactics, they don't really resonate with congruency to what actually occurs during the engagement. During the engagement, I'm not talking about a situation where, you've got the threat, you got yourself, rounds have been flying back and forth, and now we have a little bit of a pause or a break of sorts, and we go into performing our action to contend with whatever the situation is with our firearm. We're talking about the actual micro element, that moment in time where rounds are actually flying at us. And it is during this point in time that we're trying to return rounds, or we're in the process of returning rounds downrange towards a threat. And in that moment in time, in that dynamic live action of bullets flying back and forth, is where I suddenly get hit with a malfunction with my weapon. And I now have to remedy this problem while these rounds are flying at me. And to this point here, it's by the grace of God and a tremendous amount of luck that the rounds haven't impacted me yet, so I can continue to attempt to remedy the problem. When you take this macro situation that we refer to as a gun fight, it has a beginning, a middle, it has an end, it's got all kinds of variables that come into play. But when we isolate it to this one micro frame of where you are now in proximity to this threat, and rounds are in motion, going back and forth, or more importantly, the threat's rounds are flying at us, and we now have to perform the action, it vastly eliminates the majority of all the theories and the opinions and the ideas and the things that we think we can perform and that we want to do or that we prefer to do. And it funnels everything to one particular platform of what it is that you should be doing and what it is that you are more than likely going to do, whether you like it or not, because the degree of stress that you are under is going to alter everything, and the necessity to catch up in time, and we're talking milliseconds of time here, is going to take hold and affect everything. So with that said, let's look at what we are dealing with right now. I'm just going to quickly caveat here that the weapons that I'm going to be demonstrating with are airsoft weapons, okay? So just a little tidbit here of knowledge. So I'm in the gunfight. I have an empty, and I've now reinserted my magazine. And the question here is, in order to get the weapon back in the battery to chamber that round, do we rack or do we use the slide lock lever? And as you've seen so far in the video, we advocate to use the slide catch release, the slide lock release, for all the reasons I've already explained in the video, over racking the slide. Some of the additional points that I want to quickly cover over here that is missing from the footage. Put yourself for a second, mentally and emotionally, if you can. If you've ever been in this predicament, then you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. If not, I want you to really, really try to clear your mind of everything that you believe in for a sec, and try to really live for a second in your mind in this very specific scenario, that you've got a threat in front of you, within proximity, that is sending death towards you, trying to intently kill you. You've got rounds flying at you. I want you to really try to feel the significance of what's happening, the time constraint that you are under. You have to finish remedying your problem and get back into the fight in the time that it takes his round to get to you. And we all understand that's a very minuscule amount of time, okay? So when we are in that predicament where we've gotten our empty, we check, we see that we have the empty, we reach, get our new mag, reinsert it, there's three things that are gonna happen here. There's what the gun is gonna wanna do, there is what my weapon hand controlling this gun is gonna wanna do, and there's what my support hand is gonna wanna do. And I'll tell you right now that my right hand, left hand, as I already mentioned, are not gonna work in congruency with each other. They're not gonna wait for each other. As far as the gun, what is gonna happen? We all understand that we wanna get rounds on this threat as quickly as we can. That's the only thing that's gonna keep us alive. So the way that I like to kind of identify it or give this metaphor of, imagine for a second, if you will, that our weapon is this chunk of metal, and that threat, again, is this powerful magnet that is pulling the gun towards it. And anytime that we take our weapon out of this fight for whatever reason, okay, while these rounds are flying at us, so this gun is gonna wanna shoot, punch out towards that threat to unleash rounds on that threat. So picture that energy, okay, that liveliness behind the gun of always wanting to push forward. But here we are now, we're stuck because we now have to quickly perform this action. Second that my magazine gets inserted, this gun is gonna wanna already take off. Let's first look at, again, the notion of racking this slide. Okay, I've already explained the myth behind this fine and gross motor skill concept, which is non-existent here. We need to make sure that we have no obstructions, that nothing occurs here that delays our ability to send rounds at the threat, that is going to cause us to have to now go in reverse to try to clear the problem again. Okay, and what I'm talking about specifically, as you'll already seen in this video me talk about and survey the group, is that in too many cases, under the stress of training, in range environments, controlled environments where there's no life or death sentiment and distortion going on, more than enough people reinsert that mag. When they go to grab the slide to rack, they miss. Either they completely miss and don't make contact with the slide, or they make contact but no time to actually grab on to the slide. And so what happens is they punch out. Generally, this hand comes to complete the grip here, and then there comes a point in time where there's a realization that they missed, and so everything has to reverse and the action has to repeat itself, okay? When we have rounds being sent our way, this is problematic. Now, why does this occur? All right, this is very important. So, the gun needs to punch towards the threat. That's what it's going to want to do, and that's what it should do. Our weapon hand is going to be pushing that gun out towards the threat, right? Second hand magazine gets inserted. That is the go command for the gun to punch out. So weapon hand are traveling in that direction. My support hand now, it's got a couple functions that it has to perform. It's got essentially 4 directions in one moment in time that it needs to perform. So if I'm talking about racking the slide, as the magazine gets reinserted, the first thing that has to happen is my hand has to travel upwards to the top of the weapon. It then has to travel downwards. It then has to clamp. These are already 3 opposing movements. And all those 3 have to be done simultaneous to this weapon now taking off towards the threat. So this is why you get this that happens. Up, come back down, and then attempt to clamp. And we end up missing. Because that's a time constraint that we are under. That's what stress does. There is going to be no sitting here and waiting and packaging everything up and, you know, in step-by-step format, taking our time to punch this gun out. So that's the problem. Why does this occur? It occurs because, I'm talking about the missing. It occurs because I insert my magazine, and what do my hands do now? They separate. And this essentially is the fundamental reason with where the problem begins. Because we're talking about this tremendous amount of stress that disorients and interferes and hinders and delays and causes all these adverse effects to our body, our mind, everything. And in that context, under negative time constraint, my hands now have to find a way to reconnect in midair while in motion. But now again, we have the opposing three directions that this hand is doing, the up, the down, the clamping. And it has to try to map and mirror the weapon all in this same track. That's the problem. So in addition to all the things that I've already talked about with why it is that we use the slide release, because it guarantees 100% of the time that it will drop the slide, put the weapon in battery. When I reinsert or insert this mag on the reload, I don't disconnect my hands. I have this tactile reference, this tactile indexing that goes on here. So in the dark, while in motion, my hands stay together. And so now for me to be able to just do this is not a big deal, because I can map out exactly where it is with no problems, and I'm not under this time constraint of my hand having to now find the weapon in motion under stress. So again, we reinsert. As my hand already the weapon already starts to launch out towards the threat, my support hand stays with it. As I clamp onto my grip, I'm already in contact with the slide release lever, okay? And so there's no issues here with missing this whole package. And that's the irony, is that, again, as I've already, you see me survey the group here, which the majority are all instructors and SWAT guys. Everybody here has already experienced and has seen this predicament where people miss. And then again, this false notion of gross motor skill, that I've got this big chunk of hand, I've got a big chunk of parcel here of metal that I have to grab onto, but this still occurs. Because when we add in all those variables I spoke about, no time or negative time, stress through the roof, hands moving independently of one another, gun wanting to punch out as quickly as we can and not waiting for this hand to map properly and close, you still miss with all of these big, supposed gross motor things that are involved here. Meanwhile, this, supposed fine motor or fine point element here, the second that my hands clamp, I have no problems indexing it and finding it. It's right here, okay? And so to reiterate again, that point that I talked about, that I mentioned in the video, guaranteed 1,000%. In a real life situation under stress, when those rounds are flying, you're gonna have a far greater propensity for an officer or individual to completely miss grabbing onto that slide and chambering that round than you ever will with anybody missing or having a failure in dropping the slide using the lock lever here, slide lock lever, okay? Incidentally as well, if we go to our AR platform, M4 platform, okay? So I reinsert my mag, and I've got this tactile reference index point here, okay? And my thumb, I extend it, and it's already in contact, okay, with the bolt release here, okay? So 1 and 2. My hands don't separate. So it's a universal platform between the handgun and the AR, the exact same motion that remedies all of the most likely adverse tripwires that we are going to hit when we're trying to very quickly perform these functions in negative time, when our heart rate is pounding like crazy, stress level is through the roof, adrenaline is all over the place, while rounds are flying at us. Everything that you are watching me do in this video, everything that I talk about, it stems from only that one moment in time when the rounds are flying at us. I don't care about anything else. When rounds are not flying at us, and even if rounds were flying, but we have, a little pause for whatever reason, which really doesn't happen that much in gunfights, okay? Where the rounds, again, are on pause for a sec, well, it changes things. It changes the time constraint on my end. But if we're in that moment where those rounds are flying in proximity, everything that we are working on here is going to far greater exponentially, I should say, raise our probability for success with the action that we are trying to perform. Okay, so just wanted to throw that out there. I'm going to reinsert this clip into the video as well, and enjoy watching the rest of it. And again, I hope that there's positive takeaways from what I'm talking about. If there isn't, it's all good. So be it. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, you want to challenge me on anything, you know where to reach me. Feel free. Stay safe, guys.
So we use the slide release. Slide release guarantees 100% of the time that I'm dropping that slide and back in the fight a lot quicker. Now, on that topic, for those of you who use a slide release. So I reinserted my mag, and this thumb comes up now to drop the slide release. Yes, no? Yeah? You're not sure? What do you do?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Everybody watch. Little magic trick. I have a question for you guys. You have to answer, so watch very, very carefully. Watch. Are you watching? 1, 2. Am I chambered? Put your hands up if you say yes. Put your hands up if you say no. Okay. I'm the one that performed this action. I won't put my hands up because I have no fucking clue. How am I going to find out? By now pointing the weapon, pulling the trigger, and hoping that I am. Under stress, we either come together really, really well, individually I'm talking about, because the training is realistic, or we completely fall apart. Your mind is not going to wait for your body. Your right hand's not going to wait for your left hand. When you are under real stress of life or death, you're going to overcompensate, over-exaggerate. You're going to move everything as fast as it has to. And this is one of the very common malfunctions that shooters cause themselves, is that right there. Dropping the slide too soon. And so they're not chambered. So, again, I will give up a fraction of a second to make sure I'm not trading an extra couple seconds in the middle of a gunfight. So as I reinsert my magazine, support hand thumb drops the slide. Guarantees 100% of the time that I'm chambered, locked, and ready to go. Any questions on that? Okay, so once more with the reload. So I'm in from here, I'm engaging. Engaging, I suddenly don't get a reaction. What do I do? Check, I have an empty. What do I do? Strip. As I reach for my new magazine, how do I grab my mag?
Palm.
Palm, okay? Bottom of the mag sits deep into the palm to make sure I have as much finger at the top as possible. Mag comes out, see where the weapon comes down? Just underneath my line of sight. Okay, I can still see it in my periphery. If I have to transition visually, it doesn't take long for me to transition back and forth. Finger into my hand, one, nice and hard, and support hand thumb. Drops and repoint and engage. Okay? Any questions? For a second, let's talk about strategy. We're reloading because we're empty. We're in the middle of a gunfight. In the middle of a gunfight. So, first, let me ask this. Your weapon is out, you're shooting. The threat stops. Okay? He's turned to run. He's gotten behind cover. He looked at you, quickly got behind cover. You fell down. You just happened to go empty in that moment in time. What do you do? I'm not talking about the reloading process we just talked about. Strategy-wise now, what do you do? Huh? Where? How? Where? Where are you moving to?
To a different spot while you're reloading.
Where's that spot?
Close the gap.
You sure?
Probably not while you're reloading. I'm guessing offline where you.
Well, you are
Comes back up.
You are right. You're 100% right. Am I going to win a fight because I shoot a guy? No, the shooting is the tool that maybe I'm lucky enough to be able to implement. What happens if I go to reload and something is not working? I realize, shit, it's my last mag. Something is jammed, and he suddenly pops up now. What have I done? We still have distance, but who has the right tool for this distance now? Him, not me. We're in a fight. If I have the opportunity to close the distance, I always close the distance. So I'm engaging. He suddenly drops. He goes behind cover. I have an enemy at the same time. I reload as I run. If I get to him, I get to his proximity, and I finish to reload, wonderful, I finish him off. If I get to his proximity, or even in the middle of running, I realize I don't have a full mag. I don't have any more mags. Or there's a problem with my weapon, I can't remedy the reload. What have I done now? I've closed the gap, I've given myself a chance to still stay in the fight. He jumps back up, I get on top of him, I start panning the hell out of him. We're still in a fight. You understand? If he is still shooting at us and I'm empty, what do I do? As I reload, what do I have to do? You're 50% right. It's not find cover. Because do I know if I got cover anywhere? No, but you move. I don't care where you move. Move laterally, move wherever it is that you have to move, but you move. You don't stay still, but you're still working 100% fast and effective at remedying the reload. Okay? We're going to talk about cover shortly. My next favorite myth in this line of work. Any questions so far? Okay, weapons out. Now, failure to feed, failure to fire. Okay, so what's the remedy? Tap and rack. So why do we tap? So it could be failure to feed again, could be a problem with it's not working. So we tap to make sure that's seated all the way. All right, why do we rack?
To get fresh round.
Okay, so if the magazine was not seated properly, it didn't chamber at all. So we have to now chamber around, or we could have a problem with a bad round, all right, in the chamber now, so we have to get it out of there and cycle the round. If I tap and rack once, and I go to re-engage, and the weapon still doesn't fire, what do I do? Yeah, reload a brand new mag, okay? If at that point the weapon doesn't fire again, now what do I do? This becomes a hammer, and I run into threat. Because chances are your weapon has got a problem that needs an armor to fix it now. Okay? So, we tap, we rack. Let's now talk about racking. So you guys all rack like this, right? Correct? Put your hands up if yes. Don't be afraid to answer, guys. I won't pick on you. How do you rack? Slingshot. The Israeli method. The correct method. Impressed. It is the correct method. Sorry. Let me prove it to you. In the context of what we're talking about, in the middle of a gunfight. Why is it that in North America, this is the advocated method? More what?
Contact to the slide.
So more mass on the slide.
From what the range guys say, it's fine motor skill. Yeah.
Right. The number one argument is again this argument of fine versus gross motor skill. Again, there's no such thing as gross and fine motor skills with a gun. Everything is a fine motor skill. There is zero difference between this and between this. Zero. We're using finger dexterity here. It is all the same. Now, you get half your hand blown off in the middle of a gunfight, and you can't do this, you have to do this. That is a whole different story. If you have somebody who is just too small and small hands, and they can't let them do this, that's a different story. Then you teach them how to do this, and you let them do this. That's an anomaly. Let's talk about reality. I don't know how many of you here have experienced or seen this, but I think that enough of you probably have, because it happens enough. How many of you here have experienced or seen where an individual went to rack the slide like this, and they were holding on to too much frame instead of slide, and they wouldn't rack because they were preventing themselves from racking? Put your hands up. Okay? 3. All right? See, I'm even good at calling about how many. said probably not everybody here, but because again, it's just enough years in, and I've seen it all, and I've been with everybody. I've seen everything. And I look for the screw ups. I've screwed up myself more than enough times, and I sit there on the range and I look for the things that shouldn't be. Never mind what everybody is doing. And so yeah, so this here under stress. Now when we talk about grabbing a slide, where do I need to grab? Where do I need to grab? Firearms instructors, where do I need to grab to rack properly this way? Explain to me.
Back of the slide.
Don't show me, explain to me.
The back of the slide, right here.
Okay, let me also ask this, what should I not grab?
It should be a chamber. The
Okay,
port,
fine,
sorry,
sure, I
port.
shouldn't cover the ejection port, and what else should I not grab?
Sights.
No, okay. See how I'm holding my weapon? My fingertips are Am I good or bad? Problematic, right? Problematic? If I'm grabbing the frame? Yes. Because watch this. I'm strong. I'm trying to rack right now, but I'm grabbing frame. Guess what I'm doing? I'm only grabbing with the pads of my finger and my palm. I'm not even grabbing with full hand. Look. You see that space between my hand and the sights? You see that? You guys see that space there, the light right here? Look at that. I can't rack the gun. Talk about fine motor skill. A fine motor skill is preventing a gross motor skill here. Under stress, how hard are you going to hold on? You're going to hold on. Life and death, you're going to hold on. And this is why I see people have problems racking the gun, because they're grabbing a little bit of frame. A little bit of frame. I'm grabbing mostly slide, but I'm also grabbing, I'm touching a hair of the frame, and I'm preventing myself from racking. Under stress, do you really believe, I'm asking you as professionals, do you honestly, wholeheartedly believe that under stress when the rounds are flying, you, me, anybody else will be able to properly map the palm and the fingertips end up to make sure that they have this much space and they're not touching the frame? Who believes that? Who believes that? Who thinks it's bullshit? I do. Rounds are flying. You see, the funny thing is, the comedic thing and the sad thing at the same time is how our profession contradicts itself. We don't do this because it's gross motor skill. Yet, you expect me to map out fine points under stress that are far more fine motor skilled than this. So that's number one. You're not going to grab just the slide. See the difference of grabbing slide versus frame? Rounds are flying, I tap, I rack. This is how I'm going to grab. This is how people grab. Enough of you, we'll say, I'm going to take a little bit of a gamble on, but I'm going to say the majority of you have either experienced or have observed this, where the person, either after a reload or tap and rack, they go to rack and they miss the slide. You have to come back and do it again. They either completely miss or they make contact but not enough time to actually close. Put your hands up if you have experienced or seen this. Everybody, look at that. Under stress, this gun is going where? As fast as possible, it's going to the threat. Your right hand will not wait for your left hand. Your mind will not sit there and check to make sure this has happened at this time. Now, you see this motion? I have a tunnel. I've created a tunnel. I'm expecting for this gun to travel at one speed without stopping through the tunnel, and at some point in time, in space, I have to latch on. There's nothing here to slow the weapon down, except my mind. But is my mind thinking about where that weapon is in that moment in time, that fine moment in time? No, it's thinking about, holy fuck, I don't want to die. And so, the gun passes through the tunnel and my hand is too slow. Let's go to this now. Why do we use this in Israel? Why have we always used it? Again, 18-year-old kids, we have no issues. We do this beautifully, quickly, zero issues. Because this, see where my tunnel is now? It's perpendicular to the weapon. When my gun drives in, the inertia is taking it into my hand. It buys me a little bit more time to actually latch on before the gun transitions to punching out. So as opposed to this, that allows the gun 100% to continue in motion, this actually gives me a fraction of a second of the weapon now bouncing off my hand, which means that's stopping and I know to latch on, and the ability to latch on. Next, what is the most important attribute in combat? Again, what is it? We have to do things how? Speed. Speed, because bullets are flying at us. What is quicker? Is it for my hand to travel all the way up to come back down, or for my weapon and hand to meet halfway? To meet halfway. It's much quicker. We tap, we rack. Even if I happen to grab frame this way here, I have more hand, so I will muscle through. Tap, rack, and down. This way here as well, I'm guaranteeing that I'm not grabbing the ejection port. I have more than enough real estate of the weapon to plant anywhere that I need to. I don't have to sit here and map minuscule points. Ironically, the bigger the hand, the more minuscule my trajectory becomes. It actually is a much more finer motor skill because I have to be more micro-precise with where my hand actually grabs and connects. Any questions on that? Comments? Also, this is something that I learned from Jimmy that I never was in tune to, but when you got students that working on the overhand and you're on the range and they start having problems with walking this way, naturally, this is not a natural formation here. Hands are not comfortable this way. And when we start to push and to pull this way, what ends up happening with the weapon? This way here, a hell of a lot more comfortable.
It's not possible to turn it.
It's not possible for the weapon to go anywhere else than downrange. So that's just incidental. It's a lot safer as well.
And then you talk about gross motor skill, fine motor skill. I find, again, this is an interesting discussion. So go to your M4. How do you load it? So, right, so again, these things cancel each other out. So an instructor says one thing, and then they'll pick up a different weapon system, he shows you this, and he picks up an AK actually underneath it, this way, right?
Rack. Let's now look at our double feed. So a double feed is what? What do we get when we have a double feed?
Fail to eject.
Okay, so what does it look like? Visually, do we have an indicator visually? Absolutely. The longest and most complicated of all the issues that we have to remedy. All right, and what does it look like?
Well, one in the chamber and one right behind it.
Okay, so we've got a slide that is half locked open or half closed. Right, what happens again is that the slide blows back, either not fully, or it comes out, the empty casing didn't have a chance to fully eject, and we generally have either 2 live rounds in there, or we have a live round and an empty casing all stuck in here. The slide is not locked back. The slide is sitting on that obstruction. So that spring is driving the slide forward, but the slide is stuck on that obstruction. So we have this resistance here. So we check and we see that whole half of the ejection port, but everything that we see, it's all occupied in there with that debris. So what is the remedy? What do we have to do? Okay, so I just want to go right now. So some answers here were strip the magazine right away, and then I know Andy said, I don't know if anyone else did, but lock the magazine to the rear. I'll tell you right now that that is something that whether you concept of locking the slide to the rear is because in some instances the slide again is sitting against all that debris with that spring trying to drive it forward. And so what that does is it puts pressure on the magazine, and it may make it more difficult to actually pull the magazine out. And what I will tell you is that you have to know your weapon and yourself with whether or not you need to lock the slide back. I have never locked the slide back, ever. For me, I've never had to. I know that there will be people that will require to. I've seen it. Officers that have smaller hands, weaker physically, they cannot muscle the slide out, the magazine out against the pressure that the slide is putting on it. So then, for example, they will have to lock the slide back. So locking the slide back is a step that you should know yourself with your weapon, whether you need to do that or not, okay? That said, whether we lock the slide back or we don't, what is next? What do we have to do then?
We're taught to do it, tap rack ready, and then.
No, what do I have to do next?
Take the magazine.
I have to take the magazine out. You will not get rid of that obstruction if you don't take the magazine out. Generally, we take the magazine out. What happens if the weapon is held up this way?
Right at the bottom.
The empty casing and or the live round will fall out. Okay, we don't know yet whether the obstruction is clear though. So what do we have to do next? We have to rack the slide. Okay, so how do you do that? Everybody, take your weapon out for a sec. We have already inherently the longest and most complicated clearing process here. The last thing that we want to do is add time and complexity to it. All right, we're in the middle of a gunfight. So I got my double feed, identify it, magazine comes out. See the way that I grab, whenever I grab the magazine, I grab it the way that it went in. Lip of the magazine into the bottom of my palm, okay? Now, what I do is I just transfer in between my index and middle finger, okay? Just like this. How long does that take? It takes nothing, okay? Super quick. Remember the proper way to rack a weapon, a handgun? This way. Notice the cant that I have on the gun. We want to use two things to help clear the obstruction. Gravity, and that will require an opening, and then the racking motion itself. So when I release the magazine, gravity will hopefully help in from here because the mag well is open towards the bottom, so everything will fall out. When I go to rack, I can do it this way, still using gravity from the bottom, or I turn the weapon upside down using now the ejection port and gravity from over top. Now, I rack 2 or 3 times. See this? All I do now is index finger transfers up to here. That's it. That's all that happens. Now gets reinserted and you re-rack the proper way. Okay? So, again, I'm engaging, don't get a reaction. I check, I have a double feed. Immediately from here, release, catch, rack, insert, rack. I'll show you guys another method. It is one that we kind of use. It's really specific. You have to practice it. It eliminates the most complicated part of fixing a double feed, okay? And if you like it, then you work on it and you'll perfect it and you'll be fine with it. Which point of the whole remedy of the double feed is the most problematic? Not getting the mag out. It's getting it back in the middle of the gunfight. This now, taking 2 separate elements and trying to connect them in a fine point in the middle of a gunfight under stress. This is where a lot of people, especially if you're not grabbing on properly, this is where you see this happening. Okay? So one of the things that we have come up with in Israel to eliminate that, I take the magazine out, but I stop halfway, or a portion of the way. See the pinky of my grip? It slides down and grabs hold. Okay, got a nice strong lock on it here. My hand obviously has dropped, so you guys see the gap now between my hand and the tang of the weapon. I hold the weapon upside down. It has to be upside down now because I need gravity to have an opening to get rid of the obstruction. So the weapon gets held upside down. I rack, and now all I do is tap and rack. But pause for a second before I go to the rack. I have to adjust my grip. So what happens here is I tap. When I get my hand in position to rack, I take this moment now, as my support hand is clamped on, to quickly slide my hand back up, and now I rack. So the magazine never actually leaves the mag well, and that drastically saves time. Okay, so that's the second method. I'll demo it again. So in from here, engage, I don't get a reaction, I check, I have a double feed. Mag comes out halfway, or just a portion of the way. Locks in with my pinky, weapon turns upside down. I rack, re-invert, tap, adjust, rack. Okay? Weapons out. So let's try the first way, the way we're taking the magazine right out. All right? We'll do it step by step. So weapons are up, we're engaging. We get a jam. What do? We check. Okay, so step by step, we check. It's a double feed. Mag comes out in between index finger and middle finger. My round is pointing straight. Like this becomes my F-off finger right here. All right? Invert the weapon between thumb and index finger. Rack. Index finger just pops back up. Insert. Rack.
See this? Remember I talked about this operational zone with the weapon? When our hands connect, from here the weapon punches out. When the weapon retracts, it comes back into here. We have this bend in the elbow. This is important. This distance and this distance is important. I can't rack the weapon from here. Okay? From here, it doesn't work. All right? I have to pull this all the way back. I don't have room here. This is what this zone is for. From here is where I grab on. This hand retracts as this hand takes off. And I have all this extra buffer zone to be able to enact all of that action, okay? So we don't operate from here, we don't operate out here. We operate in this zone here, halfway through, all right? Okay, weapons up, you're engaging. Now we're gonna do the same thing, nice and fast. You guys wanna try the second way? We try it, all right? So again, we'll walk through it. So weapon is up, we're engaging. So we don't get a reaction, we check, we have a double feed. Palm comes underneath the mag to make sure it doesn't fall. I grab hold as I slightly drop it, and I use my shooting hand pinky to lock it in place, okay? Make sure it's locked nice and tight, all right? Very good. Invert the weapon, ejection port to the ground, rack 3 times. Weapon inverts back up, tap. Now, get the hand position for rack, but pause, adjust the grip, rack. Let's try that again, nice and fast. Weapon up, we're engaging. Jam!